Hey, how's it going, guys? Nate here, and today I want to talk a little bit about Bethesda's decision at E3 2016 to announce an Elder Scrolls V Skyrim remaster rather than a remaster of any other Elder Scrolls title, particularly Morrowind and Oblivion, as those two titles seem to be the ones many people that aren't happy with the Skyrim remaster are calling for. Because at E3 2016, while many people, myself included, were very satisfied with Bethesda's choice, a lot of people were saying, hey, wait a minute, I would have preferred an Oblivion remaster, I would have preferred a Morrowind remaster, and in this video, I'm going to do my best to justify Bethesda's choice of remastering Skyrim and kind of explain why I think it was the most appropriate thing that they could have done, mainly for logistical reasons. But first, I do want to kind of talk about the arguments people are presenting in favor of remastering any other title. So without further ado, let's do further. So to start this video off, I want to make note of what I personally feel to be the best and most well-substantiated argument people are making in favor of remastering a different Elder Scrolls title, and that is graphical necessity. What people are saying is, look, listen, Skyrim came out in 2011, and while its graphics are by no means perfect, it's still a playable game visually speaking. I mean, it still runs in 720p HD. It's a good-looking game overall. Maybe not perfect by modern standards, but it looks good, whereas the same can't really be said about either Morrowind or Oblivion, games that came out in 2002 and early 2007 respectively. You can't really look at those games and say, yeah, these look good. No, they look pretty awful by what we're used to comparatively now, and they feel almost unplayable just because of how bad their visuals are. And while you can draw the argument that, well, wait, graphics don't make a game, they certainly can break one, and they might be doing that with both those old titles. And as somebody who's tried to go back and play Morrowind a couple of times, I've put maybe a few hours into the game, but I've never really felt truly immersed with it. I always felt like, wow, this game looks pretty bad floating around in the back of my head. I just couldn't really get over that fact, and while I still had an overall enjoyable experience, I think the visuals definitely held me back, so I certainly can sympathize with this argument. The second argument being made in favor of this, I have a little, I guess you can say I have a little bit more of a problem with. I have a little bit of a harder time kind of understanding this one, or at very least agreeing with it. And that's that people are saying that their gameplay was just superior, you know? And as somebody who's played both games, as I just mentioned, I can tell you, I still, in my own opinion, felt like Skyrim was a bit superior gameplay-wise. I mean, Oblivion, it seemed as though it did have a little bit more content, but I really just didn't find myself enjoying the gameplay as much as Skyrim. I felt that Skyrim's combat was better. I felt as though Skyrim's just overall gameplay was a little bit superior for a few reasons. I mean, one of my biggest criticisms of Oblivion was the fact that whenever you'd enter conversation, the whole game would pause around you. And, well, to be fair, that's not exactly a huge problem, you know? I mean, in Fallout, you go to your Pip-Boy, the whole game pauses around you anyway, but that was just one of those little immersion breakers within gameplay that I found all too often, as well as combat and things like that I personally didn't really find in any way superior. Now, there were also some things added that were taken out for Skyrim, like, if I recall correctly, as somebody who's played Oblivion a lot, there was a Magicka sort of perk tree that wasn't available in Skyrim that they just stripped out of the game for some reason. Not sure, I don't really understand that decision. There was also a lot of content in Oblivion that just wasn't in Skyrim, but for whatever reason, I feel as though Skyrim was just a bit more of a superior game gameplay-wise. I felt the combat was better. I felt the use of magic was a little bit better. I felt like everything in that game was just a little bit more finely tuned. I definitely felt the leveling system was far superior, and in my opinion, I feel like the gameplay Skyrim had to offer was just better. Well, albeit I do kind of understand the arguments people are making, though I kind of also believe it might be shrouded in a little bit of nostalgia. I do understand the argument that's being made in terms of gameplay, I just don't particularly agree with it. Now, despite me understanding the arguments being made, the reason I believe Bethesda made the right call to remaster Skyrim simply stems from logistics. It'll be far easier and cost far less resources for Bethesda to remaster Skyrim than it would anything else being Oblivion or Morrowind. Resources which can then be allocated and invested in making a different product, or making a different product better, such as the Elder Scrolls 6, for instance. Both Fallout 4 and Skyrim run on variants of the same engine, the Creation Engine. Now, to be fair, Fallout 4's version of the engine is certainly technically superior and has been heavily enhanced by Bethesda since Skyrim. They still run on the same core engine. However, Oblivion and Morrowind both run on the very old and certainly technically outdated Gamebro engine. The Gamebro engine, being decades old, simply isn't capable of facilitating the graphical enhancements necessary to give the game a modern appearance, which would leave Bethesda with two options. Either A, desperately attempt to port either of the titles onto the Creation Engine, or B, create an entire new engine altogether if they can't port it over. Whereas Skyrim already running on the Creation Engine, which Fallout 4 has proven to be already next-gen equipped. In essence, all the developers would need to do is upgrade the current variant of the engine Skyrim ran on, or port it over to Fallout 4's version. To add to this, Bethesda already ported Skyrim to the Xbox One when the console first released, according to Todd Howard, who claimed they were using the game to try and test out the console's mechanics, which later, as the story goes, kickstarted the development of Fallout 4. So not only does it require less resources, but it's also likely a bit more profitable as well for Bethesda to remaster The Elder Scrolls V. Seeing as Skyrim was the most financially successful Elder Scrolls title the company has ever released, it's extremely likely that a little bit of that is going to rub off on the remaster as well.